Beastman Origin Explored, He-Man. Hello and welcome to another marvelous video. I hope He-Man fans are watching because today we will explore the story of one of his greatest foes, Beastman. The brutal right-hand man of Skeletor, Beastman, is a figure from the famous toy line Mattel and the animated television series Masters of the Universe. He possesses great power and control over a variety of wild animals. Beastman is a mighty animal warrior with claws and fangs as his name suggests. He is one of the most iconic antagonists from the series and has similarities to the original Wolfman. So let's take a closer look at this iconic character's backstory and personality traits. Let's see where it all began. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a very small click for you, but for us, it means a whole heck of a lot. So thank you, and let's get into it.
Give Rakaz the fight he is owed.
Please, I don't want to fight them.
You don't have a choice.
Beastman backstory explored. Early appearances. Beastman was one of the original 7 characters produced for Mattel's Masters of the Universe toy line in the early 1980s and one of the first 4 completed and released, the other 3 being He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Skeletor. While developing the character, Mattel borrowed the moniker Beastman from the figure in Mattel's older Flash Gordon toy series. The character of Beastman debuted in the mini-comic series of He-Man in 1982. Beastman was Skeletor's closest and most devoted disciple in the Evil Warrior's then small band. He was a fierce man-beast capable of summoning most of Eternia's wild beasts to help Skeletor's plots. Skeletor and Beastman initially clashed with He-Man when they abducted Teela to make her Skeletor's queen and transported her to Castle Grayskull, where they used half of the Power Sword to enter. Teela was then, of course, liberated when He-Man and Man-at-Arms arrived to save the day. Skeletor originally summoned Beastman and Merman in order to get revenge on He-Man. He ordered both of his goons to trap He-Man as he was heading to a meeting with Teela. When they returned with the news that He-Man had passed away, Skeletor attempted to enter Castle Grayskull, but was met by a very much alive He-Man together with Stratos and Teela. He had the inspiration to use the heroic warrior's energy blast to drive the evil warriors away after witnessing Skeletor use them to punish his own henchmen. Beastman also appeared in several DC comic issues in 1982. Beastman, also known by the spelling Beastman and Beast-Man, is depicted in Paul Kupperberg's adventure for DC Comics, much like in the original mini-comics. He even offered to beat up Merman, whom he thought was a coward, demonstrating his fierce loyalty to Skeletor. Beastman, like most of the DC comic characters, speaks with greater eloquence than ever before or after. He is also shown in charge of an army of his own tribe's beastmen.
Brushes, you know, brushes that'll keep my fur neat and groomed. Oh?
Beastman in Filmation's animated series. Beastman frequently appears in the famous Filmation animated series The Masters of the Universe, which accompanies the toy line. Initially seen in the pilot, Diamond Ray of Disappearance, his cartoon portrayal is generally consistent with his mini-comic portrayal, even though many of the characters were toned down for a younger child-friendly audience. However, in some early episodes, the show's writers added additional dimensions to his character by making it clear that despite his loyalty, he clearly resents being bossed around by Skeletor and secretly yearns to overthrow his master, but lacks the guts to oppose him. He later developed a comedic and goofy persona over time. In the show's later phases, notable episodes for Beastman include The Shadow of Skeletor and Orko's Return, which return him to his original darker characterization, working alone to achieve his goals. Beastman's abilities are demonstrated in previous episodes such as Creatures from the Tar Swamp and A Beastly Sideshow, where we see his command of animals is not quite flawless. For example, he's powerless over Cringer, Battlecat, and Panther. In one of the most notable early episodes titled The Dragon Invasion, it was also established that Beastman has no power over an adult dragon. Skeletor and Beastman steal several of the Mother Dragon's eggs in Dragon Valley. When the Mother Dragon strikes, Beastman's abilities cannot stop her, and Skeletor raises the beast's undercarriage, sending her plummeting into the gorge. This arc was further investigated in the 2002 animated series in the episode Dragon's Brood, which we will probably discuss later. Another important episode in his timeline was one of the earlier ones again. The episode Prince Adam No More starts with Skeletor exiling a groveling Beastman from Snake Mountain after becoming furious at He-Man for defeating him many times, as usual. Before Skeletor opens a hole beneath him, Beastman commits to return and demonstrate his full strength before he wraps his whip in a knot and ruins his place indefinitely at the council table. Later, while discussing his exile and lamenting how far he has fallen with some shadow beasts in the forest, Beastman notices King Randor traveling to Dristo City in the attack track. In order to capture the king and show his value to Skeletor, he orders the shadow beast to disable the attack track while he topples a tree in its route. Prince Adam, whom the king grudgingly permitted to accompany him on the trip, and men-at-arms are defeated by him and the Shadow Beasts, and Randor is taken captive. Beastman uses men-at-arms Freeze Ray to stop Adam and men-at-arms from pursuing him and commands them to deliver all the riches in the royal palace to Snake Mountain by dusk if they ever want the king to be set free. When he and his captive arrive at Snake Mountain, he discovers that Merman has been put in charge of security while Skeletor and the other evil warriors have left for a space mission of destruction. He then leads the king to a cell. Merman proposes they celebrate Beastman's success because he is so proud of his accomplishments. However, soon enough, Adam turns into He-Man and spoils Beastman's plans, leading to Skeletor getting angrier and mistreating and punishing Beastman a bit more. However, Beastman exclaims it was nice to be home, proving that deep down he might have enjoyed being mistreated by Skeletor. Later episodes primarily employ him for a comedic effect by having him gladly submit to Skeletor's maltreatment and frequently fail at his schemes until the dark phase arrives in the later part of the series. Beastman relied heavily on Shadow Beasts as his primary minions since they obeyed his commands without needing mind control. Beastman was frequently paired with Trapjaw, and the two would occasionally strike off on their own. Beastman remained a reasonably consistent character throughout the duration of the 1980s series. Throughout the cartoon's run, he was Skeletor's right-hand man. However, in later second season episodes, this role was briefly taken by characters like Clawful or Whiplash as writers tried to showcase new characters more prominently. However, older figures like Zodak, Merman, Triclops, and Stratos faded into obscurity as other characters were introduced. Beastman subsequently met She-Ra when he helped Skeletor organize the kidnapping of Princess Adora, referring to her as a beautiful princess as he brought her to her cage. Later, he used his strength to great success in aiding Skeletor's overthrow of the Bee People. Beastman's origins are never revealed in the show, but according to a series Bible, he was originally a thuggish human from Earth named Biff Beastman who ran a farmyard where he routinely tormented the animals. He was hired as the main technician aboard Marlena Glenn's spacecraft, which crash-landed on Eternia. Still, he ended up on Skeletor's homeworld of Infinita, where he was transformed into Beastman and recruited by Skeletor. This origin narrative occurs in the storybook New Champions of Eternia, but it was disliked by most of the show's creators and omitted from the original series.
Get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of here!
Beastman in live-action film. Beastman also appears in the 1987 live-action Masters of the Universe film. Despite being billed as Beastman, he is referred to as the Beastman in the movie. Tony Carroll plays him as the vicious Skeletor minion who just growls rather than speaks, which Karg sometimes translates. Although his lack of speech suggests a lesser level of intelligence than his customary portrayal, the character is proven capable of wielding high-tech weaponry, functioning in a team, and obeying commands. He is also shown wearing a plain, battered sword around his waist. However, the movie does not show him using it. Skeletor dispatched Beastman and his fellow mercenaries to find the cosmic key on Earth. Beastman flung himself at Skeletor's knee, gripping it and pleading for forgiveness until a repulsed Skeletor pushed him away when they failed. Later, Beastman makes a trip back to Earth with Evelyn, Karg, and Blade to recover the key. He viciously assaulted and mauled Kevin Corrigan there. If Karg hadn't intervened, he would have killed him. Later, as the fight went against them and Skeletor claimed the power of Grayskull, Beastman escaped with Evelyn and Karg. In this betrayal, European comic book artist Moebius has reimagined Beastman. He retains the same ideas as his well-known form, but has a noticeably different appearance, including longer, browner fur as opposed to the usual orange, no blue face markings, and possibly samurai-inspired new chest armor. The resurrection of Beastman. The Masters of the Universe toy line and television series was restarted in 2002, and Beastman was back. The 2002 Beastman is portrayed as being a physically more enormous creature with a slumped back, sharing nearly the same design as the original figure. He is one of the biggest redesigned bad guys, only Whiplash and Clawful being bigger. The figure now has a similar armor on both his lower legs and arm that is molded on rather than a removable like the original. The vintage figure's brilliant orange fur has been replaced with a darker orange-red fur, and the red armor has been replaced with dark brown. Overall, the figure's color scheme has been somewhat toned down. This updated version of the figure's arms swing downward when a button on his back is touched, giving it motion. He is portrayed in this new animated series similar to the previous one, even though in this iteration he never displays any symptoms of wanting to destroy Skeletor and instead remains steadfastly devoted to his friend. Only Beastman is seen to revere Skeletor as a friend completely, and in the mystery of Anwat Gar, when his master gives him a super weapon, this respect, if not trust, is reciprocated. Beastman still carries a whip, but he and his animals have friendly relationships. Although he can still manage any wild creatures, as seen in episode Dragon's Blood, he finds it challenging to handle dragons. The companion MV Creations comic book series released an origin narrative for him, revealing that he comes from the Berserker Islands, where he first meets Keldor before becoming Skeletor, even though his past is not addressed in the television series. Since Skeletor spared his life to appoint him as his servant, he has remained Skeletor's slave. Keldor attacked the Hall of Wisdom with the help of Beastman. Captain Randor blocked a bottle of acid that Keldor flung at him, severely injuring him in the process. When Beastman noticed this, he acted swiftly to save Keldor before Randor could arrest him by swooping in, picking up a griffin, and flying him to safety. Years later, when Skeletor finally discovered a method to breach the Mystic Wall, Beastman remained concealed in the Dark Hemisphere. All animals except for dragons could be tamed by Beastman. This is adequately shown in the 10th episode of the series titled Dragon's Blood, of which I have mentioned before. In the episode, we see Beastman explaining to Evelyn that he cannot control adult dragons, hence he would try and control the hatchlings from the she-dragon that he had captured. Unfortunately, the eggs got lost and cracked, allowing the hatchlings to come out of them and age rapidly. Evelyn, who saw Beastman as vermin, constantly engaged him in conflict. Beastman frequently used Serpentar's Griffin and Shadow Beasts as his servants and even managed to subdue Man-Faces when he was in beast form. He kept cages full of monsters and creatures to do his bidding in bestiary in the tunnels beneath Snake Mountain. Beastman reaches Netflix. Beastman next appears in Netflix's The Master of the Universe Revelation, released in July of 2021, which is the spiritual sequel of the series from the 80s. When Skeletor's army of Skelcons attacked Castle Grey Skull on a grand scale, Beastman was seen leading a Bashasaurus into battle. During the battle, the vehicle's massive mace was pointed towards Man-at-Arms by the vicious henchman, who laughed. He was astonished when the mace missed its intended target because it was intercepted by He-Man, the universe's most powerful being. When He-Man changed the direction of the mace, the Bashasaurus car overturned and crashed. After being tossed from the driver's seat, Beastman instantly sprang up and seized his whip. Beastman was pinned to the ground by the powerful Battle Cat before he could utilize it. A few years later, after magic had all but disappeared from planet Eternia, he followed her everywhere she went, frequently keeping a respectful distance and blending into the background to avoid drawing attention to himself. The former Man-at-Arms refused. He did so not only because he was legally prohibited from performing, and Roboto, who had all of the memories of the younger Man-at-Arms, suggested helping to make the sword and assist in recovering the two parts in order to do so. When Teela informed Duncan that his abilities would be better used, once inside, the warriors were divided up and forced to confront their worst fears, some of which they did in a familiar setting. They appeared to be in the battlefield ruins when Roboto, Beastman, and Andra noticed shadow beasts in the distance. Each of them saw their adversaries differently as foes were attacking them. Beastman only saw fire bats, while Andra assumed she was fighting zombies. On the other hand, Roboto can see through the trick and identify their adversaries as formidable shadow beasts. Roboto's power was increased by Andra using her mechanical expertise, enabling him to vanquish the shadow beasts with a blinding light burst. After overcoming their own anxieties, the friends were reunited. Evelyn insisted on having Teela hand her up the sword sword so that she could use it together with her wand to summon the all-powerful Zor and unleash all the magic she can muster to open a portal to Preternia. However, before she could enter the gate, Scareglow resurfaced and caused stalagmites to fall from the vast ceiling and stone tentacles to emerge from the ground and seize each of the warriors by the leg. This time Orko summoned all the power he still possessed to prevent the stalactites from descending and reroute them towards Scareglow. Orko stopped Scareglow from moving forward by using all of his remaining power as his buddies and allies freed their legs. Even though Evelyn tried to assist, her wand remained inoperative. She was taken in by Beastman, who then carried her through the portal. Only a tiny portion of Orko's clothing was left to cross over into Preternia with the rest of them when Scareglow managed to steal the scarf off Orko. They were met in the Preternian afterlife by Adam, who was as surprised to see them as they were to see him. Adam freely donated his part of the sword to the travelers, suggesting they ask Hero to reforge both pieces into the Sword of Power. During the wild hunt, he sought out King Grayskull for information on the gateway back to the world of the living, concealed in Preternia's Grayskull Tower. As the tower walls were made of nearly indestructible ore called Eternium, and Beastman assisted in connecting large power wires to Roboto and 4 spires inside the hall, Andra had the idea to turn the whole tower into one large forge. Meanwhile, Evelyn powered his core with some of the last magic in her wand so she could use it as a forge. Roboto reforged the 2 swords' parts, but an explosion in his center damaged him permanently. Adam was moved by his sacrifice and claimed that he would not allow any more of his companions to perish, and that he would return to Eternia, even if it meant that he would not be let into Preternia again. The gang arrived outside Castle Grayskull, which was being attacked by Motherboard and being guarded by men-at-arms after they were back on Eternia. Adam requested the power of Grayskull to revive the Orb of Power and all of Eternia's magic after Tila gave him the reforged sword. Evelyn was excited to feel her strength coming back. Still, she was taken aback when Skeletor appeared after having been hidden exceptionally well inside of the top of the Havoc Staff. Before Adam could become He-Man, Skeletor stabbed him in the back. Evelyn complied with Skeletor's request to rejoin him by his side, as well as Beastman. The power of Grayskull was then taken by Skeletor using the Sword of Power, transforming him into Skelegod. Beastman or Rakaz? Soon after this, in September of 2021, Rob David created the computer-animated superhero television series He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, an update of the original He-Man series from 1983. On September 16th, 2021, the Netflix original series made its debut. On March 3rd, 2022, a second season was published. The release date for the third season was August 18th, 2022. Beastman appeared as his human self in the series and was called Rakaz. Rakaz is a short guy with a ghastly appearance. He has gray hair that still covers the top of his head and cascades down his neck and spine like an animalistic mane. He has scars on different areas of his exposed flesh, and his eyes are hidden beneath a pair of red lens goggles, giving him a more ominous and inhuman appearance. He wears gauntlets with claws he stole from Cringer, a cloak covered in animal skulls. He also goes around without shoes. Now as the Beast Man, he wears armor studded with animal skulls and resembles a werewolf more than a Sasquatch in contrast to his previous appearances. Rakaz has a ruthless and vicious mentality. He enjoys brutally overpowering animals and making them fight for his own merciless fun. He is vindictive and resentful, always singling out Cringer, who was once in Rakaz's care but escaped, telling the tiger the next time that they meet that he owes the poacher a fight, and exhibiting a sick delight in pitting Cringer against his own family members who have been lost or whom the poacher has also captured and put under his control. As a hunter, he enjoys stalking his prey and waiting for the ideal opportunity to strike. Rakaz, whom Skeletor observed to be more animal than man, speaks in the third person, frequently in a growling manner, and exhibits predatory behavior. Rakaz was a hunter who captured wild creatures and had them engage in combat within his pit. He once captured Katuna, Prowler, and Bash, among other tigers from the tiger tribe. Rakaz took off the tiger's claws and started wearing them as medals after one of them refused to fight for him. He mockingly dubbed the tiger Cringer. Even after a while had passed, Rakaz's poacher bots were still on the lookout for stray tigers and were ready to corner and seize them if they came across them. Rakaz had grown so feral by this point from his his prolonged lack of interaction with other people that he exclusively spoke of himself in third person. Rakaz caught Adam and Kras in a net and took Adam's impressive sword. Armed with this, Rakaz confronted his old prisoner Cringer again and was startled to hear that Cringer was still going by the name that he was given as an insult. Cringer stated that it was more dignified moniker than Killer. Cringer rejoins Katuna, Prowler, and Bash. Unfortunately, they are all under Rakaz's control and have been instructed to assault Cringer. After escaping from the net, Adam and Kras came to Cringer's rescue, but Cringer invoked Grayskull's power and turned into Battle Cat without using the Sword of Grayskull, which was in Rakaz's possession at the fair moment. Adam seized the sword and also turned into He-Man simultaneously with Kras. While facing Rakaz, Battle Cat warned He-Man and Ram-Mam not to harm the 3 tigers under Rakaz's power. The other 3 tigers' enchantment was broken, and they resumed their usual selves as Cringer seized the Hunter's Whip and Control Gadget. Evelyn showed up after his loss, holding Rakaz's whip. She informed him that Rakaz's company had extended an offer to hire him after being pleased by his call against the kids. Rakaz was a key component of Evelyn and Cronus' strategy for ousting Skeletor, but first they brought Skeletor's newest minion, the Hunter, to him. Skeletor had begun fusing a stolen piece of Carbonbite with Rakaz's whip, Evelyn's wand, and Cronus' jaw brace. Skeletor completed and returned the 3 things to his minions. As a result of the Carbonbite's forging, a Havoc Storm developed above Eternos. The Masters of the Universe were on their way after finding them, as shown by the glove on the top of Evelyn's wand starting to flash. They were marching straight into his trap, Skeletor said, noting his lack of astonishment. As the young masters neared Snake Mountain, Skeletor greeted them, speaking outdoors through a microphone so that they could hear him. He let them in and guided them to a chamber for sacrifices. He changed Evelyn into Evelyn, Cronus into Trapjaw, and Rakaz into Beastman, for the first time after showing his new appearance and presenting himself as Skeletor rather than Keldor. Battle Cat was confronted by Beastman, who used his Necro Echo attack to block the cat's blade wheels move. Keep in mind that this series is not a sequel. Instead, it is a remake of the 1983 series, obviously with more polish in terms of animation and a little bit of cinematic liberty. What makes Beastman so powerful? One of Eternia's most powerful fighters, Beastman has Class 5 strength. His regular strategy is to surge in and snare his opponent in a crushing bear hug. Beastman likes to use a whip as a weapon. It's most frequently used to trap opponents, although it may be noisily cracked to intimidate. Beastman has the ability to control almost all kinds of animals telepathically. Beastman said that his banishment from Snake Mountain weakened his control over creatures. Beastman is an expert in disguises. He uses latex masks and costumes to deceive many people, including Prince Adam and the royal court. Fun facts. Fact number 1. The episode Nacht über Castle Grayskull, or in English, Night Over Castle Grayskull, included a character biography in the German audiobook series. According to the legend, Beastman was once an intelligent scientist. He discovered a potent magic plate and altered it so Skeletor could no longer utilize it. Skeletor tormented him for this reason and poisoned him to wipe out his intelligence. Beastman became Skeletor's obedient but foolish slave as a result. Fact number 2. Mattel rejected Beastman's original concept sketch by Mattel toy designer Mark Taylor because it closely resembled Chewbacca. Marvelous verdict. Being one of Mattel's 4 original action figures in the 80s, Beastman is undoubtedly one of He-Man's main characters. Beastman remained a mainstay on the show even when younger ones replaced older characters like Merman. He even returned in the 2002 season to battle with Skeletor again, and you could also see him in the Netflix series. Well, some might argue his character is a bit useless, but to see him in different versions and forms and all these adaptations indeed stirs our interest quite a bit, and it is always fun to see his love-hate relationship with Skeletor. For all the reasons stated before, Beastman is one of the finer villains of He-Man and his friends, and we can't wait to see how much the character evolves in the future. And remember, if you liked our content, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like if you haven't already. In the meantime, have a good one, be safe, and we shall see you next time. Thank you, everybody.